everybody, welcome back to Project Investigation, where every week we talk about the paranormal, the strange, and the unexplained. And as always, this is a collaboration between the Veritas Project with the founder of the Veritas Project, Robert Curtis.
Hello. And
investigator Todd, Todd Boyer, and that is me. And this week we are talking about cryptids.
Cryptids, yeah.
That's one that is all over the world. Just about every society has their own different cryptids.
Yeah, and it's a very what they call it, touch point, where people you're either on board or you're not at all. Like
so, for those who don't understand the term cryptid is a creature that is believed to be real, but they don't have actual proof.
Right.
And we're going to talk about Mothman, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, Chupacabra, and then we've actually got one here that took place in Missouri that we're going to touch on at
Illinois.
the end. Oh, Illinois.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Illinois. Yeah.
Had my states wrong. I thought it was Murfreesboro, Missouri. Murfreesboro, Illinois.
No, just south of here. Just south of where we live, actually.
So let's start with the Mothman up in Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
It's a beautiful name for a town.
Yeah.
Point Pleasant.
So basically, the Mothman is basically just like it sounds, a humanoid with wings, with a wingspan of about 10 feet. Mm-hmm. It has the ability to fly at high speeds. And this was roughly in the 60s is when this one was seen a lot. About the time the collapse of the Silver Bridge in 1967.
Right. They say it's like a harbinger. That the sighting of the Mothman was in the weeks before the bridge collapsed, so they think maybe it has something to do with the like a harbinger of doom. It was the Mothman was letting them know that something bad was going to happen to that town.
So, what are the stories and the folklore that go along with it? I mean, this. I'm getting tongue-tied here today. So this harbinger of doom, I mean, they would see this thing all the time, and we're talking big glowing red eyes, right? So, and it had multiple sightings, Yeah,
humanoid in appearance. It's like a, they describe it as being like that, that paint that's popular right now, where you put it on something and you can't see it, like it's so black that
the Venta black.
Yeah, it's like that. Like the Mothman is that kind of black where you can't see it, but his eyes glow like bright red or sometimes bright amber, depends on whose account of it is. The kids that it chased down the road from the Makeout Lane or whatever they were doing, that one, they said it had amber eyes, but everybody else says they were red. It's a big humanoid moth that chases people around and hides in the cemetery, and it's crazy. So
let's move on to probably the most well-known here in the United States.
Yeah.
Is the Bigfoot.
The Bigfoot.
Now, the Bigfoot has sightings all the way up, primarily in the Northwest.
Right.
But there are sightings all the way down to the Appalachian Mountains.
Right.
And it's funny because every area you go to, it's almost, I won't say it's named something else, like it's called a skunk ape, it's called, Sasquatch, but it all falls into the same, basically giant humanoid standing, 8 to 10 feet tall, furry or moss covered, but all gorilla kind of monster. The same, gorilla monster to be the best way to describe it, for sure.
But it walks upright.
Oh, yep, walks upright.
So it's not a gorilla.
Yep, and there was that hoax, a long time back with the, they got the video of the guy walking through the forest.
They got the Patterson Giblin film. Yep. It goes back and forth like every seems like every 10 years. There's somebody who validates it, and then like 10 years later there'll be somebody else that invalidates it. It just goes. It's always evolving. Like somebody will take 3D scans of it, and then they'll say, "Well, look here, you can see the muscle structure." And then years later, they'll say, "Oh no, they faked that too." And then it's crazy. The latest one I saw was they used image stabilizing. and they went frame by frame and edited every single frame of the negative and then image stabilized it into one thing. Then they took laser tracking and mapped it out. So what they basically project it onto something, and then they use a laser to map the creature and then turn it into 3D into another program so that they could actually see parts of the musculature moving when it's who invests this much money into it?
Somebody who wants to prove that cryptid is real. That's exactly what that is.
It's real, or look, it's not real. You know, somebody, but
it's all about entertainment value. You know,
right?
And if they can get somebody to pay them to prove or disprove, you know, could you imagine, you know, how famous you'd be if you're the person that actually proved it, though, too.
Right.
You know, and the thing is, because they're all over the United States, it could be brownish description sometimes. Sometimes it's reddish. You know, sometimes they're real tall. Sometimes they're smaller. You know, they say they bang on trees.
Right. Yeah, they throw stuff. They'll try to, like, throw rocks at you to get you out of their territory. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's all. This goes back to Native American culture, too. Like, this isn't something new. That's
where the Sasquatch term comes from,
right.
Because that's a Native American term for this cryptid that lives here in the United States.
You know, and they've found and created a lot of footprint casts over the years, too. You know, and just makes you wonder, you know, if these are all fake, did they fake all the footprints? You know, it's a lot of footprints to fake. Yeah. You know,
some of them are pretty good, too, because you can see where the footprint has actually gone into the mud and slid. So it has to be something that weighs, you know, 400, 450, you know, whereas a guy who weighs like 220 puts on a piece of plywood on his foot and starts stomping through the wetlands, it's only going to be a tiny little impression, because a 200-pound guy putting so many pounds per square inch onto a big piece of plywood, it's barely going to sink into the ground.
Right. And I mean, there's people that have seen these things like up close and personal, and they say they absolutely reek. Yeah. They smell horrible, and that's one of the, supposedly, if you're out in the woods and all of a sudden you get this really bad odor, and you know that, you know, there could be
the guy that we've met a bunch of times at the UFO festival. Nick Redfern is a leading scientist on the whole Bigfoot thing, and he has a theory that the big feet are is it big feet, Bigfoots? Whatever. I don't know. Whatever the plural of Bigfoot is.
I guess it would be Bigfoots, because
Bigfoots.
Yeah, because if it's one, it's Bigfoot. Right. Right. So
if there's multiple of them. They're
Bigfoots.
I guess. All right. But he claims that his theory is that they're interdimensional beings, and that's why you don't ever see a dead one. Is that they can phase in and out of their dimension into our dimension, and then they can phase back through some, I don't know. He put out about 10 books on it. If you ever want to look him up, his name's Nick Redfern. He's a Briton. He's really well read on it. So
right, and that's one of the big things is they've never found skeletons, and so
the only time there's any remains of them is when someone has killed one, and then usually either the MIBs, the Men in Black, show up for it, or it decays so fast that there's nothing to study. In the late 70s, there was a Bigfoot corpse that they had frozen in a block of ice that some guy brought back from Vietnam, and they used to charge people to look at it, basically. And Time Magazine sent a crew of scientists, what do you call them? Not zoologists. Is that what they're? Zoologists? Yeah. Zoo people. Yeah, zoo scientists. To come and study it, and they said that it was a real animal. So, but then the fridge broke down that it was in. It had it frozen in a block of ice, and they put a camera with a big light over the top of it so they could take pictures. Right. And the camera lens fractured the glass that was covering it up, and then eventually the freezer died, and then it started to decay. So the guy, instead of losing a bunch of money, had a special effects place in California create a body double for it, basically. And then over the years, the people, it was sold and it was sold again, and then some guy in Texas bought it, and then he defrosted it to take a look at it,
Right.
and then they found out that it was a suit. So then he told them, he's like, no, I paid, the special
Right.
effects company to make this because the real one started to rot, and then I buried it,
Of course he did.
Right. Right. It's
You
always,
couldn't save a foot and throw it in your own freezer.
Right.
I mean,
and the guy from Texas was like, I'll dig it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, show me where you buried it at.
Right.
And he was, it's always it's always something with this field. You'll never
yeah.
you never get closure on any of it. They like the UFO that crashed in Missouri, and the farmers took it into their field. They filled the hole in with concrete. Like what?
Why?
Why would you do that? Like why? You know what I mean? Like it's always something like that. Like, oh, well, it was looking at me weird, so I just burned it to ashes. Like, why do you dummies do this all the time?
So let's move on to another really famous one, Loch
The
Ness
Loch
Monster.
Ness Monster.
So obviously,
much.
Loch Ness is a huge body of water in Scotland, and it is very, very deep.
Yeah.
Very, very deep.
Yeah. A lot of cameras will get pressure smashed from going to the bottom. So you have to have a special kind of submarine to even film the bottom of the lake because it's so deep.
So the Loch Ness Monster is basically described as a serpent type,
Right.
or even more dinosaurish kind of looking,
like
with one or
plesiosaur, is that what they call
multiple.
that?
Yep, with one or multiple humps.
Yeah.
That's been in these locks for a long time. Now, I actually have a personal hearsay story about this type of creature, not the Loch Ness Monster, but it was in California, and this was a friend of my dad's, and I was a kid, and I remember sitting at this man's kitchen table, and basically the head of this creature, they were on a pier, and the head of this creature came up out of the water and was right in front of him and scared the absolute bejesus out of him. And he said he even had his camera in his hand. He was taking pictures, and it scared them so bad that he didn't even think to take pictures. Even though he had the camera in his hand. And I sat, and it was crazy because he would be like, blah, 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 and then the wife would chime in and add parts, and like, it's not one of those things where you go, oh yeah, whatever. But they were both telling the same story and adding to each other's story. It was kind of a weird one. No,
That's
but
amazing.
yeah, same kind of creature, but in California. So
We have one in Missouri called Momo the Monster
Yeah.
or something like that. It's a Loch Ness type monster, I think.
isn't it down in the Ozarks?
Yeah.
So,
So they're all over these sightings of whatever this thing is.
but right. So, but still, the most famous one, obviously,
Right,
is the
it's
Loch Ness Monster. So, so it really gained momentum in the 1930s.
Right.
There
was a boating accident, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the guy had like a super fast boat, and it clipped it and disintegrated on the lake. And that's why they really started looking into it, because they were like, hey, this thing could become a problem.
Right.
Fishing boats and everything.
Let's run some boats into it and flip them over. So in 1934, there was a photograph taken. I'm sure you guys have all seen it. It's been out there a long time. Yeah. It's just like a silhouette, a neck sticking up and a little head.
Right.
And little
humps behind it.
Little humps behind it. They finally figured out that photo was a hoax.
Right.
And to me it looked like a log.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what happened. Is it found out it was a wooden floaty that was being, pushed onto the water, and photographs taken of it.
Pull a string or whatever. Yeah.
So, and now they've been out there in Loch Ness, and they've done sonar and everything else to find Nessie, but just the magnitude of the depth of the loch is so deep that they try like heck to get the whole area, but it's also very wide. So they can't get scans of the whole loch at the same time to where if something swam around them, they wouldn't see it. So they can only like do it in chunks, and nobody's ever come up with anything.
If the thing's fast enough to move out of the way.
But I mean, it's a big tourist attraction, and you know, big in pop culture and
museums and little tchotchke shops all around it. They sell, you know, paperweights,
like Area 51, where it's
yeah.
just like shop after shop.
Right.
You know, it's a big tourist thing to go out and see. You know, Loch Ness. So let's talk about. Move on to the weirdest one, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Chupacabra.
Yeah, we wanted to pick a newer one than the other ones. So the South American Chupacabra.
So this thing is a dog-like creature with spines, and it's supposed to have hollow teeth because it sucks blood.
Right.
So it's kind of vampire demon dog type of situation.
Yeah. The Chupacabra means goat sucker.
Yep.
So it drains the blood of goats at night, and whenever people see it, they say that it looks like it has really thin skin, it has spines on its back, and it walks like a dog, basically.
Yep. Glowing red eyes, you know, and say it's big. I've seen ones that say it's smaller.
Right.
You know, I mean, you know, when this kind of started around the 1900s is when this first started coming out. And it's crazy how these different cultures and different areas have had these sightings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, something that we talked about a few podcasts ago, like dragons.
Right.
Like every culture has
culture
dragons.
has one, yeah.
You know, so it makes you wonder, you know, where does all this stuff come from? Why can't we find it? If there's that many sightings of all these cryptids, why can't we find evidence?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
like what happened to them, you know?
You know? Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, obviously the older stuff, you know, it's like, you know, this has been around for generation after generation.
Right.
You know, and a lot of people have seen it, but we have nothing.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the Chupacabra became popular in like America in the 90s.
Right.
Because with the influx of immigrants, you know, and then they started telling people about it, and they started seeing it here. So we don't know if Chupacabra has just moved up north with them, or if the story of the Chupacabra moved north with them.
Right.
And it's like an urban legend, you know. Because a lot of people think that the Chupacabra is actually a dog with mange.
Right.
And it
what are them little ugly dogs from Mexico called? I don't remember what those. Well, they're not the Chihuahuas. They're the ones that like have a few hairs here and a few hairs there.
Oh.
That are always in the world's ugliest dog competition. Look those up. Those are hilarious. But yeah, so there's like one type of dog down there that's really mangy looking that looks like that. So, and the question here is seeing believing, or is believing seeing?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
they're looking for the Chupacabra, you know, so when they go to the chicken coop in the middle of the night and hear something rustling around, they see a mangy dog run away and immediately think, oh, that was the Chupacabra. That wasn't the, you know, stray dog.
But that kind of goes along with paranormal too, just in general. You know, if you believe that you're going to see a ghost on every investigation, you believe you're going to find something on every investigation, you find something.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you make something that's not into something. You know, that's why I know Bob and I are big skeptics. Like, you know, we have to see to believe.
Yeah.
So,
and we watch these TV shows, you know, like I don't name names, but you know the Travel Channel shows, and the whole time, you know, what I always do is whenever they're going to do a spirit box session, I don't look at the screen, and then I listen to what the spirit box actually says, and then I'll look back and see what they're telling me that it says. Right. Because a lot of times, if you do that, you look away for a second, and you'll hear it say like French fries, and then you look back and it's like, you know, I died here. You're like, but because you read it when you hear it, then your mind fills in those gaps, and then it sounds to you like it really did say I died here, but really it said French fries. Yeah,
have you heard that chant? I know it's on a lot of the social medias one It's a chant at a football game. That's like you read it and there's like 5 different phrases, and every phrase you read, it sounds like that phrase.
Right.
It's like Bart Simpson bouncing or something like that, or and there's like I said, like 5 different phrases, and if you read it, that's exactly what you hear. Like that's exactly what you hear.
Or the subway video where it says the train is going into the tunnel,
right,
and then it says the train is going out of the tunnel, and then the train literally changes directions, and now it looks like it's going out of the tunnel because you read that. Your brain fills that in.
Your brain fills in a lot of gaps. There's a lot of things that we go through in life with things we read and stuff like that, to things we read, things we see. Our brain fills those gaps in. Everybody has blind spots in your eyes, and you can take a pencil and move it around and see when like the tip of the pencil disappears. Your brain fills that in to make it like you don't have any blind spots. But everybody has them.
Right.
So your brain does a lot to fill in the blanks, and I know we're getting off the track here, but that's what we're good at. I think that's the best organic conversations, though.
Yeah.
We were just talking about this the other day with the particles.
Oh yeah, the photons.
The photons
and the slits, right?
So if you fire photons through 2 slits, and you observe firing those photons through 2 slits, you will get on the wall behind it 2 lines, right? Because the photons go this way and go that way.
They travel straight, right? Photons of light is what it is, basically.
If you do not look at those photons, if you're not tracking those photons, right? You've just got the emitter and you've got the wall behind that keeps track of where they hit. They come up random in a wave
pattern, right?
So you don't get 2 lines, you get multiple lines across it. And it's simply because you're observing it.
And the weirdest part about it is, if you put a camera there and record it and then you don't observe it, it still makes the pattern.
Yep, it still makes the correct pattern.
Right. So the observability affects the outcome.
Yeah.
And there's no explanation. Even, what's his name, the space guy that hates everything? The guy with the afro.
Yep. I know exactly who you're talking about.
That's one of the, he even says, he's like, there's no explanation for it. We don't understand why it does it.
I just saw something recently where there was a bunch of scientists and him. And one of these scientists was breaking down, he said they were breaking down structures and this and that, and at its lowest point, it's binary.
Oh, yeah,
it's zeros and ones.
Yeah.
And he's like we're in a simulation. They broke everything down to the lowest point. It's zeros
code.
And ones. Yeah,
that's what it is.
It's code.
When they broke down all the chemicals and how everything works, they broke it down into ones and zeros, and then put it into a machine learning computer. It actually is code. Yep. So like the chemical composition of a flower plus its electronic structure broken down into ones and zeros, you put it into a machine learning device, and it makes like a DNA structure of the flower. So it's like crazy. That's a program. Like everything is a program. It's weird.
So yeah, believing is seeing, I guess. Yeah, and
right. Like the tree falls in the forest and nobody's there. Did it really make a noise? Like, does the Matrix render the tree?
Yeah, exactly.
If nobody's there to observe
it. And that's, if you know about gaming, there's 2 different ways to render a field in a game. Okay, and the most efficient way to render the field is you do a triangle out from the point of view of your character.
Right.
And only render what's in this point of view.
Right.
And that's the most efficient way because that's what's being observed.
The stuff that's behind.
Everything out here is nothing. They don't even render that.
Yeah.
An inefficient way is render everything and let the camera move freely.
Right. Like an MMO where there's a whole bunch of players, then you have to render everything. And then usually they cheat that by making fog.
Right.
So that way your draw distance, right, is what what you're actually seeing, but then other players are there, so they see it too. But in a first-person game that's really detailed, that's what they do. Like, only the part that you can see on your monitor is the part that exists.
Yep.
The rest of it's not rendered. So if you turn around, then it's creating that and
the
that
part
second.
as you turn.
And then what you were looking at over here doesn't exist anymore.
Yep.
So there's a
craziness.
It's become a religion. I hate to say it, because it's called the Church of the Machine God.
Really?
You can look it up on the internet, and it's a rabbit hole to go down. And I'm ashamed to say I've gone down it a lot.
I think we're like 3 turns down the rabbit hole already from our original subject here. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot of evidence on that website about how the world we live in is a simulation, and it's crazy. It's crazy, the stuff that's on there. You should look it up sometime. It's a wild rabbit hole, and TikTok's full of videos about it.
Oh, yeah.
Like NPCs and all of that.
Yep. So, well, we hope you enjoyed our discussion today on cryptids, and then the little rabbit hole we took off the side there.
Like always.
Like always.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Tangent that we always go down.
Always. So, we thank you guys for watching. Check us out on all the social medias. The Veritas Project on all the socials. What is your Instagram? Is it the R Curtis?
Yeah, I think it's RS Curtis 73.
RS Curtis 73. Yeah. All my socials. I'm really big on the face literature one. Well, I'm not sure they like us saying the names of other platforms. So face, and then one of these things. Investigator Todd on all mine. And
I think I've changed as many of the names to the Veritas Project if I can. So.
But definitely check us out. We have other things in other places, and we thank you guys for watching. We covered cryptids, their origins, basically what a cryptid is.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're going to go out today, and hopefully we'll have a surprise for you guys in future podcasts coming up. And thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time. Oh, actually, I almost forgot. Remember,
stay curious
and find the truth. Now we'll catch you next time.
All right.
Take it easy, guys.